what we do at ByGen, we work for the banks, the we work for the government. We also work for other organizations, and we're into IT solutions and other as far as consultancies is concerned. Now, how did I start? I started as a developer. Okay, so I started from picking up Java, and I I think I coded practical full-time coding for like 11 years. Okay, and I was actually in payment sector. Okay, and so along the way, I rose to the position of an engineering manager. I believe that most of us here we've got some IT expert in here, right? We've got network. I think I was hearing something about MySQL and all that from somebody about you, right? You were talking about MySQL the other time some minutes ago, right? So you're a database guru, or what do you do? Okay. Oh, like a data analyst? Oh, that's what you do, right? Great. So, like what I was trying to talk about, that is nice meeting you, man. What's the name? Oh, Lucas. Okay, so the thing is, at some point in my career, when I became the engineering manager, we know that as an engineering manager, it's more than just managing developers, right? You have your QA, you have a DevOps team, probably you have some system analysts also on the team. You got to manage all those guys. And along the way, I realized that this DevOps team was very, very tiny, and we actually needed to expand. There were a lot of things that we needed to do, like we needed to move, especially during the lockdown period. We needed to move some of our infrastructure to the cloud. We needed to automate some deployments that were going to happen from development to QA, from QA to the sandbox, from sandbox to prod. All these things, they were not easily obtainable like before lockdown. As a result of that, I had to step up my game in DevOps. So I had to pick up courses in, Dockerization, Docker Swarm, Kubernetes, Ansible, CI/CD, Jenkins, and things like that. Because I had to manage my team, I had to ensure that I supported my engineer. He was a junior engineer. And that made me actually very good with DevOps at that point in time. Then I moved again to I saw that there was actually a gap in, you are very sound technically, right? But you need to convert whatever it's coming from the business team into what you can submit to your technology team. And I knew that the actual person who can easily fill that role is a solution architect. As a result of that, I went into solution architecture, and that is why I am here. Okay, having said that, I think the next thing we should do now is to go straight to business. Solution architect. Who is a solution architect? I'm going to paint, I'm sure, since most of us are IT guys, right? But just to create that balance, because I understand that there are actually some people over here that are trying to migrate. They are from different backgrounds. Am I correct? Yeah. So you want to move there. So I'm going to try to be as neutral as possible. Now I'm going to explain a solution architecture person with a scenario. We're all very familiar with the Interact and all that we use for doing transfer. Imagine a situation where you want to, ByGen, for instance, we're thinking of a solution. I'm just giving an example, right? We're thinking of a solution that will allow customers to transfer money, send money to their moms, their dads, immigrants, let's put it that way. And maybe we're going to call the application maybe like foreign pay. I don't know. Maybe the choice of that's my business analyst there. Is it a nice name? Oh, okay. Anyways, pardon me if it's not nice enough. I'm not good at that. They are the specialists at such things, right? So foreign pay is going to be such that I'm just giving you like a sample process flow of what we're thinking. I mean, what I'm going to think of just for the sake of this event, right? You're thinking that, okay, I want to send some money to somebody in back home country, and once I log into my mobile app or my internet banking, for me to do my authorization, it's probably going to send an OTP to me for the second level authentication as the 2FA. Then based on that, that application is seen as supposed to be submitted to, maybe we're looking at foreign pay as something that, a solution that will be riding on Interact. At that point in time, when that transaction is authenticated, I want it submitted to Interact. Maybe there is an API there, API call. For the sake of those of us that don't know about that, that's an application programming interface, okay? So these are like ways to exchange things across, platforms. Okay, let me keep it simple that way. Okay, so you, at that point in time when that transaction is approved, you want to send it down to that place and all that. You have the understanding of what you want to do, but you are getting this from the customers. How are you going to change this into what could be understood by your technical experts? Your developers, how are they going to understand what you're trying to do? How are you going to break it down to what they will understand? They only understand the technical jargons, right? The DevOps understands the CI/CD. Push it. How do I set up this? The QA is thinking of automating his or her test, using Selenium, Cucumber, and the likes, or maybe a Postman, for instance. And this is what is actually, that role is what a solution architect, that's what he feels. He goes out there, he picks maybe he goes out with our business analyst here, right? Understand what these requirements are. How would the customer want foreign pay to look like? He brings it back. He draws an architecture of what he thinks how that should work. You understand, end to end. Then he works all throughout the whole development and the SDLC life cycle. He works with the product manager, business analyst. They create user stories. He's not the one that's going to create the user stories, by the way, but he goes through the product backlogs. He's part of the team that is going to probably pick those product backlog and prioritize based on the way, and then all these kind of things go into the sprint, or whether it's going to be a Kanban task, as the case may be, depending on the structure of the organization. He is that guy that takes it from business, translates it to architecture, to the architecture that is supposed to be. He is that same guy that is supposed to ensure that there is no service that is being used, that is being recreated. Instead, it should be reusable. He's that same guy that, as much as possible, watch out for what are the loopholes that could be in this kind of solution. Imagine a situation whereby foreign pay is now such that you want to do your transaction to somebody, and then you're trying to do like a 50K 10 times, that's 500K, maybe from Dylan's account. I'm not that rich, right? So, and along the way, out of those 10 transactions, 3 of them, as a result, based on one thing or the other, network failure, connection pool exceeded, connection limits, all those kind of errors that we come across when we're dealing with database, network, all those things, right? There are 3 transactions out of these 10 that are not persisted in the database or wherever it's supposed to be. Who pays for this 150K? Who is going to get fired? Who, or maybe who is going to jail? It's as serious as that. I've seen things like that before, right? This and more is part of the things that a solution architect is supposed to actually look out for when it's coming up with his architecture. Now, there are times when people confuse solution architecture, like you're a solution architect. This guy says he's an enterprise architect. What's the difference between you guys? Everybody's an architect, right? Everybody's an architect, but people confuse it a lot with enterprise architect. I won't tell you they are completely two different things, right? Or two different professions. Now, I've explained what a solution architect does, right? I'm also going to talk about who an enterprise architect is or what it does. An enterprise architect is more into kind of IT governance. He's not as technical as the solution architect. What he's looking at more is to look at the whole enterprise, see the whole governance in terms of how IT operations go to business, things like that. He's not tasked with the responsibility of carrying those business requirements, those user stories that have been broken down into backlogs, broken down into tickets and all that. He's not tasked with those things. So take to tech team to now start thinking of things that will be highly scalable, have resilience, highly available. That's not his own task. So in summary, we can say that a solution architect is actually kind of like a subset of an enterprise architect. Well, for those that are actually into enterprise architect already or you are desiring to be there, I'm not going to discourage you, but I'm going to tell you, I don't know, I hope I'm not causing any trouble here. There's no enterprise architect. I'm not looking for trouble, please. Okay? So, but then I must tell you that in terms of prospects, you can never compare the prospects the solution architect has got to what an enterprise architect has right now. As a matter of fact, when you see job posting and you say enterprise architect, don't you feel like, what? I saw one for TD Bank recently after like 5 years. Like, really, there is still, like you can work without an enterprise architect. You have your business analyst, you have your product managers, product developers, you have your solution architect. I'm sorry. However, I know like people like D1, right? These are, in case you're interested in it, you can still go for all these certifications like TOGAF, ITIL, and the likes, and that, I think that's the guru. Just approach him. He's going to probably do into that. Okay, well, that is it about that. As far as solution architect and enterprise architect, they are concerned. Now, why is this whole noise about being a solution architect? Everybody's talking about solution architects, people are studying very hard for it. People are like, I want to be a solution architect and things like that. It's more because of so many things that comes along with it. First, I'm going to start from the one that everybody wants to hear. The pay that comes with you working as a solution architect is a lot of money. As a matter of fact, the review for them as far as salary is concerned is around 125K to like $500,000. Yeah, I can tell you that for free. You can go check it out. But it depends on how much you know. There is a solution architect level. You keep growing until you even get to senior solution architect level. In fact, I have a friend who works as a senior solution architect on contract, and he earns about $500 per hour. Yeah. So that's tell you that it's something that, man, it's very, very attractive. That is why everybody's talking about it. One of the major reasons. I'm sure that is why most of us want to go into it, right? If we want to be one. Another one is the job security, of course. You see solution architect job postings everywhere. Don't just write it on your LinkedIn profile. You are in trouble from recruiters. They call you, they test you, they do everything like all the time. Don't make that mistake, right? Unless you're really in need of it. Then how about the flexibility? How about most importantly, the kind of joy you derive after doing that? I've been in that shoes before, and I go to a store, I go to somewhere, I'm like, man, I'm probably with someone, maybe a girlfriend or someone. That solution they are using, right? I was the actor. You remember we went live last 3 weeks. I was the one, It gives you some kind of joy, some kind of pleasure, I mean, you having to do that. That is one. Okay, so these are kind of part of the things that, I mean, just pardon this, right? Just like an instance of things that he can come up with for a foreign pay. the guy as a solution architect has to look at how will these things work with each other. He's thinking of the application to be in maybe what the tech lead is giving him, something like microservices. He, as much as possible, try to avoid a monolith application. For instance, we think about, let's look at foreign pay, for instance. I talked about the OTP part the last time, right? We all know that the OTP part is going to be, powered by a vendor that deals in SMS, right? Now, imagine if somewhere along the line, we now think of it that, okay, we don't want to use the same vendor that we're using for delivery of these SMSs to these customers anymore for the OTP because they are too costly. There is another guy in town that is cheaper. We even heard that it's even faster. Their service is even faster. How are you telling me that I was paying you so much money as a solution architect, and then it's time to only change the vendor, the service provider rather, and I have to start broadcasting that there's going to be an upgrade, the whole application is going to go down and all that? Then I should fire you as my solution architect. I need to get another one. Why? Because while this thing was happening, you should have ensured that this thing is decoupled as much as possible, such that let the developer connect to the new guy or the new API or whatever those guys are using. Let the QA run their own tests. Let them change management happen. Once everything is good, we can just stop only that service. That service should be a standalone on its own. That's one of the things that this guy is looking for. Then how about a situation whereby, I gave an instance of those 3 transactions that failed, that were not written into the database, right? Or wherever, whether flat file, whatever it is that is being used in that application, right? What did the solution architect say about that kind of thing? Is there a fail safe? Is it probably asking whoever is writing that application to write into a file, for instance, and so that maybe there is another service that goes ahead and pick those transactions in that file before settlement and reconciliation happens. I hope I'm not saying too much jargons, right? So these are sample. It looks at everything, then everything is together. Now, like I said before, for the sake of those of us that are not IT experts yet, we are coming from some other background, we want to go into this guy. I want to say right now that when it comes to being a solution architect, you can't just start okay, by the way, right? To be a solution architect or to be an IT professional, you don't need a college diploma. You don't need a bachelor degree or whatever it is. If you have them, good. But, well, at the end of the day, what is important is what you know, what you've tried to do. And once you're called for the interview, can you prove yourself? When you start working, are you going to, will you be confirmed, after 3 months or 6 months, as the case may be? You guys know what I'm talking about, right? Now, you don't need all that as a solution architect at all. You can be a high school graduate, or even you might not even be one, and yet you can be any of these guys. What you need to do is, let's go back to solution architect, right? You need to pick an IT career, spend some time in it, be very good at it. Then you can move. So that's why we'll be talking about some IT professions, right? There is a very long list. But out of that list, I think we should just probably talk about some most common ones that they are really, really highly in demand on the market. Software engineer or developer, programmer, whatever you want to call it. Well, if you want to go into that definition now, we're going to spend a whole day. We don't have all the time, right? This is the most popular. It's the broadest too. But when it comes to software engineering, right, what you want to start a career in that, what you should be looking at is which programming language do I want to pick. Then you don't need to do any major thing other than just go to YouTube. There are a lot of courses there. There is Java. I mean, when it comes to programming language, it depends on what you want to do, right? Like if you want to be thinking of just backend, then you should be thinking of Java, some JavaScript, .NET, and the likes. If what you're thinking of is front end, you want to be doing, think of HTML, CSS, and other. You should know some JavaScript so that you can do some stuff with what you're writing. Any developer here? Nice one. Okay. Anybody into front end development or designing and all that? You do everything. Nice one. Oh wow. I never knew there are people like this over here in Moncton. I'm actually very happy to know this, right? So now what I was saying, right, when it comes to the thing that you actually need as a software engineer, you can pick anything depending on what you actually want to do, what you want to specialize in. If you're going to specialize in data analysis or maybe data engineering or something, you should think of something that will actually do some AI work for you, like Python, R, and the likes. If you're going to just think of, I'm going to be backend all the time, and I'm going to do payments and all those kind of things, maybe you should think of Java. But I must advise you, if you want to go into software engineering and you're starting or you're just switching from somewhere, I think you should go for something like JavaScript. It's easier. It also has a front end and a back end, so you can actually do your work end to end. It even has mobile. You can even use it to build your mobile stuff, and you're good, right? So that's my suggestion. If you're not going into software engineering, you want to go into DevOps engineer, which is another thing highly in demand in the market. There, what do you have to do? Just go on YouTube, Udemy, all these guys. Oh, by the way, let me go back to the software engineering. So what you need to do in order to actually go fully into, you picked your language, right? Or whatever it is that you want to choose. You've gone on YouTube, you've gone on Udemy, you've gone on Coursera, you've gone on all these guys. You've learned some things. Please try to also go and study more about data structure and algorithm. There are websites where you can, Codility is there for you. It's going to give you different scenarios or problems. You're going to probably try some things. You have program biz, you have jigs for gigs, and stuff like that. You practice. By the time you're facing your employer, your potential employer, they don't even, after the first round, after the second round, which is you're in already, you'll be the one negotiating the salary. Even though you don't have any experience or any college degree or anything, you'll get in. It's as easy as that. And you don't even need any certification for that. I can tell you that for free. Now, talking about DevOps engineer, what you need is very similar to this guy. For me, I've been in both. I spent years in both of them. For me, I think it's more comfortable. It takes more time because it's more operational. So it takes more of your time. But it's not as serious as this other guy, the software engineering, right? So you can, what do you need in order to get started in that? You don't have to know anything in IT. You can just go into it. Pick one of these courses. They're everywhere. What you expected to know is to know how to make use of DevOps tools. Things like Ansible, things like Jira, all these things used in tracking projects. There is GitLab CI, there is Trello, there is all this. They're very easy to use, right? You just need to have a good understanding of how they work and even how to set them up. Things like how to smell code of your developers, of your software engineering team, for how to smell them for bad codes, like SonarQube, SonarLite, how to set those guys up. Things like how to Dockerize those applications using Docker, looking Docker Swarm to actually connect between those applications. Like we gave an instance of the foreign page the other time. We talked about like the main application that submits to Interact, the other one that actually sends SMS. These are like two services. These two guys, they are two different services, and each of them probably a microservice. You Dockerize this one, you Dockerize that one. I don't want to go into all those things, but what I'm trying to say is that how do these guys talk to each other? What can you use? You have different tools like Kubernetes, Docker Swarm, and things like that. How do you, for instance, when it comes to settlement, For a whole day, these are the transactions for today. You want to reconcile all these 10 transactions, 50K transactions that were done from day one's account. And you know everything. You still have to tell someone in operation to go and go to the database, spool the records, feed it into another system. Meanwhile, you have a DevOps. You don't have to do all that. He or she is going to write one or two scripts. He knows where you're picking from. He knows where he's going to. He knows how those things are supposed to be. That is why this guy is also in a very high demand. So you just go look for a course there, and then you move on. Then security engineers. This is a bit higher than being a software engineer or a DevOps engineer. Most of the times, if you want to go into something like that, you probably have some IT background, no matter how little it is. Why? Because you see, this software engineer, for instance, now is a developer. He has written a good code. He actually writes clean code. He observed all the rules of a secure coding, whatever. He encrypted those things that are being said using either or whether it's symmetric or asymmetric algorithm, whatever he's doing. But he can't do all. The DevOps guy also wrapped that application into a container or an application server, and then he's done everything that he thinks he can do. He has put SSL in front, he has no, but there are still guys, they are ready to hack into your system. They are going and hack into your system. That's just how it is. You need people who are actually specialists in this kind of thing, and we call them security engineers. They have tools, they have techniques with which they actually attack your system before they push it out to the market. And see, so far it's vulnerable to them, then it's going to be more vulnerable when it gets out. Do you agree with me? So these guys are also into that. Then talking about like the cloud engineers, we know cloud engineers are really, really highly in demand now, especially since the time of lockdown, that people had to move things from premise to the cloud. Am I correct? I hope everybody's following me. Yeah, okay, great. So now, talking about like the data experts too. We've got data analysts who is just like, what he's just trying to do is he's working with the data that is available. He just want to forecast. He just want to do some of this. He just want to use Excel. I don't know whether most of us know this tool from IBM. They just use it, even Excel, you do all sort of things, and then you submit. You can do some forecasting. But when it comes to data engineering, you need more, right? What you're doing is like doing like a pipeline of data, not just like you have the data, but then you're trying to do a pipeline. You need to write some programs at that point in time. People use R for that. People use Python for that. So you need to probably pick up one of those courses also, or one of these platforms that I mentioned, and do that. And then the same thing with scientists. Scientists are actually deeper. They go deeper than what's it called? We have a whole lot of IT professions that you can go into. So you can pick any one of them. You don't need a certification. Just pick one. Study. Practice. If what you're doing is software engineering, write code. Pick like 2 projects. Use this technology you've mastered. Use it to do that. Go to Git. Submit those codes there. Go to your LinkedIn profile. That's where everything is happening. Man, advertise yourself as much as possible. Put everything there. Tell them the projects you've done. Put your Git repo, put it over there. Make sure your resume is also intact. Make sure your resume is as much as possible a reflection of what you have on your LinkedIn profile. It's very important. Then be ready for the interview, because that is when you know, where you get the job. Because the first thing is just to see all those things, and when you're not good enough, you are gone. So, having talked about that, well, there are so many things. I know that we don't have enough time, so I'm not going to go into most of those things. But one thing I wanted to know that you can pick any one of these guys. And now let's go back to solution architecture. You have spent, say, like 3 to 5 years being a DevOps guy, and now it's time. You're like, man, it's enough. I want to earn those $500 per hour too, and it's time for me to move on. What do you do at that point in time? All this while I've been telling you that it's not compulsory, right, to write a certification in some of these courses or some of these professions, like DevOps. I mentioned that, software engineering, you don't have to. But for a solution architect, it's not a must, but my own advice to you, right? It should be a must for you. You should write a certification. You should write certifications for it, as a matter of fact. Now, what you need to do at that point in time is to pick out of the big three. There is a big three. They are the ones that major in cloud platforms. Those are Amazon, Microsoft Azure, and GCP. That's Google Cloud Platform. Now, the question is, which of these guys do you want to go with? I use both. I use all of them, actually. But I major more. I did my certifications in AWS. What should be the determinant for you to pick out of these three? You need to look at your region. What's the support for that guy you're picking? AWS is like the most popular right now. They create a path for you through which you can be a solution architect. AWS has a whole lot of catalog of services, many things you can use for database restore, things you can use for scaling, things you can use for, there are so many things, EC2 instances and all that. They are not as many. I mean, there are so many compared to when you talk about what Microsoft Azure will give you or what GCP would give you. But when it comes to coverage of regions everywhere, Microsoft Azure is the best in that. When it comes to looking at open source, how much of open source do you guys have in your organization that you would want whatever it is that you're doing to plug into? You talk about AWS or GCP, not Microsoft at that point in time. Those are the things you need to think about. Then, if you're somebody that you get easily overwhelmed with, I have so many services, I've got so many things, don't bother about AWS, think of something else. So, as far as AWS is, you have the associate exam, which will teach you different things. You pick up the course, you try to register for the exam. People don't just read DOMs. Most of these guys, your employers, they know people use DOMs. I'm sorry, it looks like everybody uses DOMs, right? Do we know DOMs? Yeah, we all know DOMs, right? But what? Okay, I thought you were saying something. But don't just limit yourself to DOMs because you're looking for a big trouble. You know, the first one you're going to be writing there is the AWS Certified Solution Architect Associate. It's just about 65 questions, and I think the cut-off mark is around 720. It's been a while that I wrote it, maybe like 3 years back. Now, after that, okay. So after that is the AWS. By the time you spend like a year as an associate, you can move into the professional. That's the next stage. Then after that, you can, if you don't want to go for AWS, you can go for the, okay, so these are the two exams I was talking about. You can go for Microsoft Azure Architect. That one, you have the foundation, then you have the actual professional. Now, finally, I'm being told that my time is up. Finally, you want to be a solution architect. You spend these years, you know what the roadmap is. You need to ask yourself a question that will take you far in the journey because it's not an easy journey. Why do I want to be a solution architect? Is it because of that $500 per hour or $1,000 per hour? That's not going to take you far. Thank you very much.